We've had patients say, I will sell my car, I will get a second mortgage on my house, like I need to fix my teeth. There's basically a deal, if you will, that if you teach here for 3 years, then we will give you the equivalent of an advanced standing without needing to pay for it. This job is not posted, this is not advertised, you're not gonna find us anywhere, but it exists.
I actually came here on a scholarship, so my education was fully funded and I was given a stipend to live off the whole 3 years. Every single year they pay for 10 UK graduates to come do a graduate degree. Essentially, I'm coming out of the program debt-free, which is just unreal.
I was like, let me just apply, and then whatever I don't have next year, I'll make it better. And I actually got in, so it just goes to show you should try it. You know, our lives have changed so much in the past few years that
who knows?
I'm not even predicting it anymore.
6 years ago, I recorded an episode with Dr. Christina Gauchan all about moving to America as a dentist. And a lot has changed in the world in 6 years. Firstly, that episode was the second ever episode Protrusive, and now in the many hundreds. I just want to thank you guys for sticking with Protrusive all these years. If you're new, hello. Nice of you to join us. In this episode, you're going to learn so much about moving to the USA as a dentist. Whether you want to become a general dentist who's able to practice in the USA, or you want to do a specialty program in the USA to bring back to your home country, or to continue practicing as a specialist in the US. We cover all the main pathways, and a big thanks to our guests. The duo we have today is Dr. Hazel Kerr and Dr. Doreen Rehani. They're currently faculty at UPenn, having done a perio program, and they're both qualified in the UK, but the advice they share is relevant no matter where you qualified from. Whether it's Asia, South America, Australia, we really made this episode applicable to any dentist in the world. I asked all the questions. Around about 3/4 of the way through, they described the entire process from beginning to end. Okay, here's what you need to do first, then the second, and then the third step, and the personal statement, and the application website, and we cover all that in good detail. But just the higher level questions, the decision making that you need to do. What are the big barriers and challenges to practicing in the States? How much does it cost? And is there a big difference? Well, I'll tell you something, there's a big cultural difference when it comes to dentistry, and you'll hear that at the end of this episode. From scholarships to all the different types of specialty programs you could do in the US, we cover every single thing in this episode. This is one of our non-clinical episodes, an interference cast, and we have similar episodes about moving to Dubai, moving to Australia, and just general life ones related to dentistry. Check the entire catalog of all the interference casts. Some of these non-clinical ones often can be the best ones. The 2 docs that we have today have been incredibly helpful, so please do enjoy this episode as we explore deep into career options in the USA for dentists. I'll catch you in the outro. Okay, doctors Doreen Rehani and Hazel Kerr, thanks so much for joining me today. We were just having a little gag before I hit the record button that at one stage we all of us may end up with some sort of American accent kind of thing, obviously. So we'll find out a little bit more about that. But thanks so much for coming on the show today to talk about something that probably every dentist in the world has thought about, like, for sure, okay? Because when you think about it, like, you know, wherever country you qualify from, yeah, from UK for me, and you, both you ladies as well, we'll talk more about that. Eventually you think, okay, well, with this degree, what possibilities lie before me? And very quickly, when you're in the UK, very quickly, you Google it. Now with AI, back in the day when I was doing it, there was no AI to tell you the short answer. Like, it's not easy. Right? It's not like you can just go and just start practicing, right? And so very quickly you learn, okay, let's just park America to the side, and then you start looking at like Dubai, and then you look at Europe and that kind of stuff. But a lot of other dentists end up coming here to the UK. And so because USA has this like big barrier, and it's like making it more difficult, and I understand why, because I truly believe that if America made it easy, then everyone would just go there, right? It's just one of those thoughts I had. I don't know if you ladies felt the same, but before we delve into that, right? So some introductions, okay? So because you're on the left of me, Hazel, just tell us about yourself and your journey, and I want to learn about Doreen's journey as well.
Of course. So I grew up in Scotland. I applied to dental school straight from high school, but didn't get in. And then I actually did a 3-year hygiene degree at Manchester, and then went straight into dentistry from there. And it was through the time that I was like thinking about the US, but again, it was like bit of the American dream. And then I went on to do my DFT training in London, and then I did DCT 1 and 2 in oral and maxillofacial surgery in Guildford in London, and then I went on to stay as a junior clinical fellow for another year. And so it was kind of during that time that my kind of understanding of training in America evolved from, which we'll go into later, just the 2-year program to specialty training. And that was really like a big game changer for me. So, and then got into University of Pennsylvania for periodontics and completed our 3-year degree, just graduated in June, and now clinical in periodontics here at Penn.
Amazing. And so just to, well, I'm sure we'll go into this anyway, but that probably means that you can work as a clinical faculty, but you're not able to work in practice there. Am I right?
We will go into that, but yes.
Okay.
There's roots into it, and you can work in practice, and we'll go into that in a lot more detail, but our route is a little bit different.
For the time being, we can't work in practice, but essentially once we finish a 3-year faculty post, it's almost like an honorary DMD an honorary degree that they'll give you, but it's one of the many routes that are not really talked about, which we'll definitely get into.
Okay, great. We'll learn more about that. And just quickly, Hazel, why perio? Like you've had such a diverse journey. You did Max Fax as well, and then so what made you think, okay, not only I'm going to move to America, but I'm going to move to America, and I'm choosing perio. How did that come about?
I feel like I've kind of come full circle, starting in hygiene, then doing so hygiene was very, it's very perio. When I did dentistry, I was kind of then exposed to everything else, pros, restorative, endo, and I still liked my perio training, but just like that became a side. That it was just one part of it, and then I learned everything else. I actually thought I wanted to do ortho at one point, but then so when I went into practice, again with the national recruitment, just depending on how well you do in your DCT applications, I ended up in Max Fax, which I just did not know I was gonna like or not. So I was actually kind of squeamish. I was like, oh, this is gonna be an interesting year, and I fell in love with it. Like I really, really loved it. I loved the team, I loved surgeries, but I just didn't love the lifestyle that I saw in the consultants that I was working with at the time. It's heavy commitment to on calls, long hours. And I was looking at just their lifestyle as well. And I was like, is what they have what I want in the long term? But I knew that I loved surgery. And so I was kind of like exploring the other options out there. And then it was when I kind of was like, well, actually, I can do perio where I still get to do a lot of the surgical stuff that I like. I get to incorporate all the stuff from my early career that I started off doing. So yeah, then when I actually looked into what the specialty can offer and the scope of stuff that you can do, and with it being in America where I'd always kind of been interested in America. So I was like, it's a very surgical heavy program here. And so to me, everything that just made sense about doing it. And I was like, yeah, as soon as I realized that was an option to me, I was like, yeah, I know 100% that's for me. So that's kind of how I ended up going from like very basic hygiene to dentistry to surgery to then it kind of incorporating all that specialty together.
I love it. They say that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back, and it just goes with that. So thanks for sharing that. Doreen, what's your story?
So I'm born in Iran, but I grew up in Canada. So I'm an honorary Brit. But when I was 18 in Canada, you have to do an undergraduate degree before dentistry. And I was like, maybe I'll just try to apply to the UK and see, because I would love to go straight into it. And I ended up at Queen's Belfast, and I had the best 5 years there. I loved it so much. I was like, okay, well, let me just do my foundation year and then I'll go back to my family. And I did that and I loved it. We both worked in London for a DFT. And then my parents...
What year was this, by the way? What year did you do your London DFT together?
So we weren't exactly
separate,
together.
yeah.
I was in 2020, 2021.
I graduated 2018. So I was in my DFT with 18.
We were 2 years apart.
Okay.
And so while I was there, I thought, okay, like, let me look into the Canadian board exams and see like how I can get back to Canada. As you know, like the Canadian board exams are no joke. People study for it for 3 years, 4 years, and they don't even, pass rate is really low. I was working on the side. So very quickly, I was like, oh, nope, I don't want to do that. Don't want to waste that time. So then I looked into the US and I thought, all right, let me just like look at a couple of schools and apply. And I also found the specialist route. One thing that, again, is lesser known is by coming here, you also open the door to Canada as well. So with a US specialty degree, you qualify to take the Canadian specialty exams also. So you essentially bypass the Canadian general dentistry route and you can go straight into the specialty route. And I sort of had the same testament as Hazel. I was like, I don't want to study for, 2 years, 3 years, only to end up exactly where I'm at. Probably even less because you're missing out.
But study by study, you mean like, it's not like you're studying for exam, you're actually like going back to dental school? Is that what you mean?
So in Canada is slightly different in that in order to be able to practice there, you have to take their board exams. And
Yeah.
it's
But you said you have people study for years there, and that's what I'm trying. You said for that board exam, people study for years, but that's not like an official institutional. It's just people are just like hitting the books hard for 3 years. That's what you mean, right?
exactly. And
Okay.
like how it works is there you have to pass the first one before you can take the second one, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can have a lot of delays.
But
So
if you wanted to stay in the UK, with the fact that you're from Canada and then you had a BDS from Queen's Belfast, was there any barrier to you practicing in the UK, or you could have just continued in the UK?
no, I could continue in the UK. I mean, thankfully my passport was great. Like I could work in the UK. So my thought was I was just going to work away and I was just going to do the little Canadian exams on the side. And then very quickly I found out they're not little Canadian exams. They're really challenging.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why I, closed that chapter and decided to go the US route. And it was
And
more,
now I appreciate what you said, which is if you
yeah,
wanted to go to if you wanted to go to the US via a different route, you could then do some sort of residency, and you'll explain what that means, or whatever, to then have a DMD or just be a general dentist in USA. But you're saying a very smart thing, whereas okay, you invest the same amount of time or similar amount of time, but then you become a specialist at the end of it. That actually sounds very smart to me. So, which specialty did you choose? Perio as well?
yes.
Okay. So, what was your reason for choosing Perio?
Mine was sort of different. When I graduated dental school, I was like, I absolutely don't want to specialize. I want to do cosmetics. I want to make people look beautiful, more beautiful. And when I went into practice, very quickly I learned how much stress is involved with that as well. And those patients are very demanding and difficult to treat. Whereas my perio patient base, I actually fell in love with the patient base. And on the whole, generally it's an older population, which I love, and they are a lot more appreciative, and I love the surgical aspect of it as well. And actually, before I came here, I thought, okay, well, I really want to place implants, and that is what I want to do. So perio could be a good route. And then I think most people who go into perio, at least at my school, they come for the implants, but it ends up not being their favorite treatment. So I actually then later on fell in love with all the other surgeries much more. And that just became a small part of what we do. So yeah, I'm very happy with the decision.
Great. And so now you're at a stage where you're both at the same stage now, whereby you've done your perio training, right? So Mike, just explain to me that you've done your perio training, but can we call you a specialist or can we not? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're after the 3 years certificate. It's a certificate program, and most residences are, unless you do a master's as well, which we have as well. So we graduated with a certificate in periodontics, so we're specialists, but we also have a master's in oral biology, and so it's 2 degrees that it was incorporated into the program, the 3-year program, whereas other specialties, it might be an extra year after. So some of the residencies here are only 2 years. And so if you want to do a master's, you might have to do that separate. But we are specialists. We are still going to be board certified. So there's 2 parts to become a board certified specialist. So board certified periodontist. And you take the first part during your final year of residency, and you can't take the second part until after you graduate. So that's what we're going to be doing next April.
Yeah, it's like a driving test. You have to like wait a year and then go
Yeah,
back.
it's like the theory and then the oral.
I was just going to say, what's the difference between a specialist and a board certified? But you've explained it. I get it. It's an extra step. And so, but does that give you anything? Like, if you were just to stop now, is that possible? Can you just exit now and then just practice periodontics without having the board certified part? So what advantages does the board certified give you other than status and...
It's just that. It's status, really.
I think there's some insurance benefits that you get by being a board certified periodontist, which people in private practice have mentioned. We're not in private practice yet, but I think you do get some benefits. But like the MFDS, it's like, if you haven't got it, why don't you have it? Everybody's got it. So
Yeah.
I think now it's everybody is
entering the job market. It's just one more tick box that you have to have. And then you pay money to the board. every year to maintain your status in addition to the exams. And then you become a diplomat of the board. So when you go to the conferences, then you're a diplomat of the conferences.
Okay, makes sense. And so let's now talk about the main topic. So when someone wants to consider whether they are from India, Nigeria, UK, wherever they're from, and I imagine the roots probably will be, maybe they differ. You teach me, they differ depending on where you're from. There's probably a list of countries that follow path 1 and they maybe have 5 paths available, and a list of countries that have maybe 2 paths available, something like that. So it's difficult to pitch it, but I'll let you lead this in terms of how many different routes are there for an international person who's already a dentist, or not, or maybe someone's 18 and they're listening to this thinking, hey, can I actually just go to, okay, maybe not 18, maybe they have a undergraduate degree here in the UK, for example, and they want to go and study dentistry. So let's explore all those routes available in the best way you think is easy to organize.
So I think the 2 main routes, if you already are a dentist, it actually, funnily enough, for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, everyone's on the same page in terms of what country you're from, as long as you have a DMD equivalent. So a BDS in the UK is the equivalent of a DMD. Some countries give that, like some of the South American countries just give you a DMD, but like India, for example, it's a BDS. The UK is a BDS. So whatever they call it, there is a service called the ECE, and there's probably others. It's essentially a translating service for your dental transcripts, and that will tell you if your degree is equivalent or not. So it will also then translate your transcripts into the United States version so that it goes on the grade point average system. And really, that is the first thing that you need in order to be able to apply to these routes.
Yeah.
So when you were looking to applying to UPenn or wherever, you read that, okay, this is what I got to do first. And so then you reach out to this company and then you pay them a fee or something and then they do that for you. But then at this stage, you haven't really committed to anything. You're just doing like the pre-approval. Am I right?
This is like if you're eligible or not. So then you're a dentist. Then you have to decide the 2 paths you want to go down. Okay. Either general dentistry, which would be via the advanced standing program. And the advanced standing program is really the last, on average, 2 years of dental school. Some of them are 24 months, some of them are 30 months. It kind of varies depending on where you are. And there's hundreds of these programs throughout the country, and it's very diverse. People from all different countries. You have to have very proficient English in order to be able to speak to the patients. And
they have this in UPenn? They have this in UPenn where you are?
A big program.
Is it mostly South Americans, mostly Indians? What do you have?
It's a good number of South Americans, but many Indians.
A lot of Indians. I would say that's the 2 main, the biggest
some Iranian people.
Population group. Yeah, some Iranian. And most of these, I would say most of them have been practicing dentists for many years, and it's like for spousal reason, their family have moved over here and they want to come and convert their program. And I think that's what most of us certainly the only route I knew in the UK was available to me when I was looking into it. And I was like, do I really want expensive?
Let's talk money. Tell us, Hazel, how much you're looking at. I mean, obviously, hundreds of programs, hundreds of different fee structures, but on average, you probably would have done your homework in terms of, okay, it ranges from this to this. What are we looking at?
I would say in and around at least 100,000 a year.
Minimum, I would say it depends. Like you can go to some state schools. So like you might not necessarily get, if the name of the university isn't as important to you, maybe you can find something for around 50,000, but that would be at a push. But most of the programs, especially the private institutes, are closer to the 100 range. I mean, Penn is one of the...
And that's for like the tuition. That's just for the tuition, right? Obviously, you got your living expenses separately and that kind of stuff, all the stuff you need to buy. So that's your tuition. Do they have like do these advanced standing programs? Did I get that? Is it advanced standing programs? Did I get it right? Okay. Do they have like a student loan service or not? They're not really... Yeah, I guess they are students, I guess, in a way. Do they have like a loan service?
You can. I mean, you can apply for like federal loans, but being international, the interest rates are going to be higher.
You would have to get a bank loan if you're international, and so then you would almost be better getting a bank loan from your own country and converting it rather than applying as a foreigner here. If you have citizenship, I mean, most students in the U.S., they're kind of famous for their student loans. So most of them have loans.
Yeah, it's a very normal concept here.
Yeah.
And we're talking high level loans.
If anything, right, if you do a 2-year program and you're paying $100,000 a year, you're $200,000 in debt, and then you're looking at the guys who actually are American, who qualified for America, and they've got maybe $500,000 debt, and they're looking at you like, hey, you got the BDS, you got the DMD pretty cheap kind of thing, right?
Exactly what people say. Because me, like going from North America, some of my faculty members are like, that was definitely the cheaper route. I'm like, I spent a lot.
Here we are thinking that, oh my God, it's so expensive. But actually, the one thing I didn't appreciate until recently is joining some of these American Facebook groups is actually, yeah, you have a lot of debt. So maybe this isn't as bad as it could be.
Americans that I've like really realized is that first off, they're not scared of debt. Like you see that with patients, you see that with the students, like they are not scared of debt and they are very sure in themselves that they will pay it back. And also I think they value the investment, and it truly is an investment. And, you would hope that you would get a return on the investment as well in the long term. And so they don't shy away from that in the short term.
Okay, so now we know how much it costs. It takes on average 2 years or 30 months. It varies depending on different ones. And so that's probably the main route. Would you say, you probably don't have this data because it's probably not published, but most people probably go down this route rather than the specialist route, would you say? Probably because there's more of those positions available than specialists, maybe?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more positions. Most schools around the country do it. And they'll have a different number of intake per year, but it's generally a lot higher than any of the specialty programs will.
Ours was one of the biggest specialty programs, and it accepted 9 students. And almost all of us were international. So they don't have a cap on how many internationals they take, which is great. But in general, I mean, the numbers are really small. Most programs are only a couple people per year.
2 or 3 residents a year.
Okay, and so when you apply for this program, like you ladies, when you applied for this Perio program, were you competing with the American docs who wanted to specialize as well?
Yeah.
Okay, well done for at least to get those 9 places. That's really impressive. Well done. Make me proud. Well done. That's really good. So well done. That's amazing. And then is yours like a similar fee? Is that okay to talk about? Like, how much does it cost to do a specialty program per year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $100 per year.
Well, you talk about yours because my situation is slightly different.
Yeah, so like for my situation, I worked a little bit in London, so I was able to put that towards, but I have like pretty supportive family that helps me out with it. So it was $100,000 per year, and I would say on average they recommend about $20,000 for living expenses. I mean, rent and everything like that's not cheap here, and that's Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, I would say, is like it's on the higher end in terms of being expensive, but it's not New York or Boston. So that was my situation. And then also we both actually got merit scholarships of $20,000 for 2 of our years. So it just got deducted from our tuition.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so I actually came here on a scholarship. So my education was fully funded and I was given a stipend to live off the whole 3 years. So that was honestly like the best scholarship I think I know. It's called the Turon.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us more. How does one land that? That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's called Turon. They are a family scholarship. They started off with a Scottish, I think they're 3 generations in now. So it was originally a Scottish man who married one of the DuPonts, who were a very big family in the US. And they wanted to connect the UK-US by forming like almost an exchange scholarship program. So every single year they pay for 10 UK graduates to come to the University of Pennsylvania. It's only for University of Pennsylvania to do a graduate degree. Now, it could be in anything. It could be law, social policy, dentistry. Historically, there's only been a few dentists that have done it because nobody knows about it. But for most
How did you find that?
Word of mouth, it really was like, it was so, like, it's so hard to hear about these things, which is why we're trying to like tell
That's
people.
like why we're trying to set up. We're like, there's information out there. Like
these things. So they also pay for about 5 or 6 Penn graduates to go to any university in the UK. So it might be Oxford, Cambridge, wherever they want, but they pay for your full tuition and a stipend to live off each year. So essentially I'm coming out of the program debt free, which is just,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
unreal. So extremely lucky in that. Yeah, it's a great scholarship that's
But
available.
I think the lesson we can learn there, Hazel, is that there could be scholarships available at many of these institutions. You just got to do your due diligence and find out if you're eligible and stuff. So it'd be a real shame if you don't just delve deeper into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the specialties, like within the specialty itself, I mean, the program gives scholarships, the school gives scholarships, the American Board of Periodontics gives scholarships, and they give big ones too, not just 1,000.
Yeah,
So
when we heard they were giving out $20,000 scholarships at the school,
we were
like,
shocked.
"What? That's crazy."
I've just got Oprah Winfrey in my head. You get a scholarship. You can get a scholarship. You can get.
This guy probably got a scholarship. So
yeah,
they're pretty generous over here, and they know that you have student debt, and so I think that's probably hands down the biggest barrier for people coming over to the US, and I think there's a lot of avenues to navigate that.
So you ladies obviously pick perio. You obviously in UPenn you have make a pros program, ortho program. So if you had lived an alternate universe and lived again, and maybe you decided that you wanted to do Hazel wanted to do ortho after all, you could have got the same kind of, is it 3 year for ortho, 3 year for prosto, or does it vary? Does the topic or the specialty you pick to drastically change your chances or your progression into the pathway you've gone into?
I mean, it depends on how tough the program is per school, because every school has certain programs that perform better than others. For example, endo at Penn is meant to be world renowned. It's probably a very difficult program to get into. So endo is probably one of the more challenging ones.
we actually have a Brit here from.
Yeah, we do.
We have a Brit here in the endo program.
We all kind of just congregated. It's exactly the same thing. So peds and endo are 2-year programs. Ortho varies. It's about 2 to 3 years. But it actually doesn't matter if you go for a 2-year program or a 3-year. The route can still be the same.
Yeah, the requirements and the routes are very, very similar. Each program, their GPA requirement might vary, and that's not something that's advertised. So that's something that they don't, even for perio, they don't tell you what the minimum GPA is, but it's kind of an unspoken, rule that you want to be in and around a 3.5, which is equivalent.
I don't know what this means. How do I find out what my GPA is? I have no idea.
So at around 70 is equivalent to, they say it's a 4.0, but it's not as black and white as that. So you want to
70%? Are we talking 70% in your BDS exams? Is that what you mean?
Okay. Yeah. So
okay.
it depends on everyone, but here they inflate their grades quite a lot more. So 4.0 I think is 90% and above, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it's very high for them.
And you could find, if you wanted to just see if you were even in that ballpark, you could just sign up to the ECE, send in your dental transcripts, and then you'll get your grade point average back. So even if I did my ECA way further down the line into the application, because I didn't even realize there was a kind of that kind of GPA requirement, which we now know because we're on the other side doing the interviews now.
Yeah.
But that wasn't documented anywhere. So if you're interested in just even seeing if you're going to be anywhere near that, you could just pay for the ECE without paying for any of the other parts of the application program, and you'll have an idea of where you're at and whether, it's worth investing the money into the rest of the application.
And for the people who are in dental school, I mean, it just goes to show your grades are important if you're thinking about coming to then, they look at the whole transcript of all the years. So
yeah, I don't think I ever considered
That's really such a good tip, because when you're at dental school, you just think, okay, as long as you get 50%, you can be a dentist, doesn't make a difference. But actually, if you do have US in your aspirations, you're going to have to do a whole conversion. So let's say your GPA is way below 3.8. Does that mean that you compromise your application for the specialty, which makes sense? But do you also compromise your application for the advanced standing program?
A little bit less, that's a little bit less strict on the GPA, because for that one also, you're competing with everyone in the world, I suppose, but you're not competing with the US applicants. And they're actually really tough ones to compete with from a grade point average aspect, because like I said, now that we're in the school environment, we realize they inflate their grades a fair bit. So it's hard to compete with that. So for the advanced standing, you're competing with other countries that probably grade very like in a difficult way as well.
Because there's even
It's less
variation
important.
between like Bells, like
Schools.
Queens and Manchester graded it differently. How you got honors was different. I feel like there's so much variation in the UK. It's not a classified degree. I don't think I ever looked at my transcripts beyond dental or even
You
throughout
just look for
dental
the
school.
pass.
You just look to see if you pass.
Okay, that's really good. That's really good to know, actually. Okay, fine. So they take your the ESE service to take your grades into account, to get your GPA, and then to see is it even worth going down the specialty route. There's lots of dental programs, hundreds that you could apply to different specialty programs. So there's a route. But what would you advise for someone who's maybe newly qualified? Because it just sounds really smart what you said, Doreen. It sounds really, really clever to me that, okay, do you really want to do a 3-year program and then come out being a general dentist? Or do you want to do a 2 or 3-year program and come out as a specialist? I just can't get that out of my head. It just makes so much sense. But again, the caveat is that it's going to be a lot more competitive to get into a specialty program. Is that a fair summary?
Yes. And there's one more caveat. The second caveat is that, see, not all good things that are too good to be true or whatever that saying is. But the second caveat is that you can only practice in certain states. So once you qualify after specializing, there's about 10 states in which you can practice with your BDS degree and your specialty. And so these 10 states include, so one thing that makes it challenging about the United States and finding information is that every single state operates in silo. And so they don't communicate with each other. They all have different requirements. That's why you like have to be very specific deciding which state you want to practice in. So Texas, Illinois, which is Chicago, Washington, which is like Seattle,
Vermont, Maine, I think maybe one of the Carolinas.
There's about 10.
Yeah.
And so there's about 10, and then more open up the longer you're qualified. So what we would really say if you're choosing between the two, I mean, yes, it sounds great, but for example, if you have your family in New York and you want to go back to New York, you're going to have more hoops to jump through after you specialize. So maybe the advanced standing might be more appropriate if you're very set on that state.
And if you just want to do general...
I'm just trying to get my head around this. It's nothing to do with the fact that you're at UPenn. Those 10 states don't depend on the fact that you did your specialty at UPenn. If you did your specialty anywhere as an international, you're still limited to those same 10 states, but they open up as you get more qualified. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. But then let's say I wanted to do perio in NYU, okay? And as an international student, I apply for perio at NYU, I get in, but I still cannot practice in New York. It's only still those 10 states that we just spoke about. Is that right? Okay, they're nodding.
It's based on need. So, for example, Virginia might not have a lot of specialists, or they have a bigger population and they don't have enough dentists. So it's not based on, that's what it's based on, unfortunately. And that's why they can chop and change sometimes.
So like, just because they have a state open now doesn't mean that they might change their rules. So you can't just rely on that necessarily. And then also not every state, like there are some states that are like, no matter what, you just cannot get a license here. Even so, like, for example, you can work in Chicago for maybe 2 or 3 years and then other states become available, like California or whatever, but that's not the same for that's not a hard and fast rule for everywhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you have to be willing to look into each state's requirements and see whether that's going to be an option for you in the future. So if you don't want that headache, or if you just know you don't want to specialize, then the advanced standing is a better route for you, I would say.
Yeah.
Understood. So the advanced standing, which again is the pathway that you can be a general dentist in the US, that opens up all the states to you. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
You're just like all the other American trained dentists then.
Yes. Yeah, you're just considered an American dentist. And so if you wanted to specialize after that, you could. It's entirely up to you. You could work as a general dentist.
So how we got into our position is, I mean, first off, we started looking at jobs in these specific states. And I guess family circumstances change also. But we realized that if we stay here in the faculty route, they really need faculty here. They want people to stay in the university. And so there's basically a deal, if you will, that if you teach here for 3 years, then we will give you the equivalent of an advanced standing without needing to pay for it. this is something that, I mean, this job is not posted. This is not advertised. You're not going to find this anywhere, but it exists. And it exists at some schools.
You have to just do your own digging. You have to go and do your own research, ask around who's doing this.
Yeah.
They call it faculty pass. And so you're teaching for a couple of years. You're being paid a full salary. You're full-time faculty. And then, but you don't pay for the 2 years of your advanced standings. That make the most sense.
You give to the school and they give that back.
Perfect. But so this is, which takes me back to Hazel, when I asked you earlier, are you able to practice here? And you said you'll come to that. We're kind of there now, right? Whereby I asked you, are you able to practice? So if I got this right, if I'm understanding correct, your state, so wait a minute. So UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, is in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Well, yes,
it is. It's not in Pennsylvania. Is Pennsylvania in Philadelphia?
It's the state. Pennsylvania is the state. Philadelphia is the city within Pennsylvania.
Oh. Got it. Okay, fine. Okay. Pennsylvania is not one of the 10 states that you can work as a specialist. Okay, it's not. Okay, understood. Which is, okay. Hello, YouTube Protrusive. I know you're watching on YouTube, and I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But I wanted to highlight, in case you don't know yet, we have an amazing viewing experience on protrusive.app, our website, our network, our platform. So I just want to spend a minute to show you what this looks like. On the left side, you see the navigation, and when you join the app, you get a 1-minute video tour of the entire network. Now, in terms of where the magic happens, that's in the Protrusive community, because you might come for the content, but you'll stay for the community of the nicest and geekiest dentists in the world. We have all these polls, we have a chat group, there's always active chats and dentists helping dentists. And really what I wanted to do is create a really supportive environment that's not like the environment we have on Facebook, and it's built on the values of niceness and geekiness. If you are nice and geeky, you belong here. Now, to make this a safe space, we have a manual process of approval. We actually verify that you are a dental professional before you get in here. So we have hundreds of applicants a day. So if it's been about 2 days and you haven't heard anything, either something's in your junk or you need to reach out. If you're still waiting to join your tribe, email marie@protrusive.co.uk. That's MARI@protrusive.co.uk, and she'll investigate what's happened. Now, all the videos you have on YouTube are also on here, but you actually have some extra ones for free that you don't have on YouTube. So you get some bonus content that's not on YouTube. And actually for the future, I'm not taking things out of YouTube, but some things are not appropriate for the wider public, and I want to sort of safeguard that information, which is like dentist talk, if you like. So that's why a lot of the content is only here and not on YouTube. So you're kind of missing out if you're not on here. That's why I'd love for you to join there. And if you join one of our paid plans, then what you get is access to the CE quiz like this one, and you can get CPD or CE certificates, and also you get our premium notes. So these are a great aid memoir or revision for an episode to really cement your learning. And whilst we have ads and YouTube places ads on YouTube, we don't have that on our network. So for the paid plan, you get to see all of the premium notes without any of the ads. And of course, you get to support Team Protrusive and help us to continue what we're doing. I'm just going to gloss over the Protrusive Vault, which has all our infographics and downloadables. These are all our masterclasses at this moment in time, and we're always planning to add more. And if you look at them, there's about 1, 2, 3, it's about 7 of them. But actually, if you look at the replay section, some of the live masterclasses that I've done and some of the training that people pay for on other websites is all on there, included as part of the masterclass subscription. And if you're a student, don't fear, we have a special section for you with all the student notes, which anyone can access. So for example, here is one on exodontia. So it's all there waiting for you on Protrusive guidance. Please head over to the website, which is protrusive.app. Make an account on your browser. This could be Safari, Chrome, however you want to do it. And once you've made your login, then you can download the iOS or Android app and then log in through there. So the reason to make the subscription primarily on the website first is that you get access to a free trial, which you don't get if you make an account on Android, iOS. If you make it on the website, you get access to the free trial, and you get our best price if you sign up through protrusive.app. So our best deals and free trials are only on protrusive.app. Of course, we always put the link below in the description, and thank you so much for enjoying our videos on YouTube. But it's now finally time to level up your experience. Back to the episode. So when you complete your giving to the faculty for 3 years and you get the faculty pass, almost said pass, when you get the pass, does that mean that you will be able to be a general dentist in Pennsylvania, or you can actually practice as a specialist in Pennsylvania?
We can be specialists.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be specialists. Fine. So once we get the equivalent, we get the DMD after working, we can be specialists in any state everywhere.
Okay, great. So how far are you away from that?
Well, we
2.5 years.
yeah, we're about two
We
2
just
years.
started.
Yeah, just over 2 years now.
Yeah.
And you actually can work in so if we wanted to, we could go and take up a job in Virginia whilst we're doing this. It just, this is already a full-time job, so it would be kind of on top of this. But we also have we have our dental license in Virginia already. So we could go and work there right now if we wanted to at the same time as doing this. I think right now we're just figuring out how busy we're going to be, how feasible that would be.
We also have ties to Pennsylvania and this university, but for example, if you study in Virginia and you do the faculty program there, it actually works out nicely. You can work as faculty and you can do some periodontal work on the side on the weekends, for example, if you teach in a state where you're also eligible to practice.
So one of those 10 states, if you do a specialty program there, it may have some advantages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But like I said, the need for faculty, they do need faculty. So,
and what is faculty? Like what do you do? What do you ladies do? Are you going around teaching third year dental students, or are you actually treating patients like you're like a staff grade? Like what are you actually doing?
So we're mostly teaching on the pre-doc clinic. So they're going to be seeing their patients and we'll be the instructors on the clinic, tracking all their perio work, making sure that, signing off on that, making sure that their patients are alive and well at the end of the appointment. But we're also doing some didactic stuff as well. So we're teaching lectures, we're doing seminars with them. And remember, they only become clinical for the last 2 years. So they're only clinical in we say D3 and D4 years. So we kind of catch them in the earlier bits just before they come onto clinic and make sure that they know what they're doing. It's interesting because perio is like the biggest specialty in this school.
We're the top dog at this.
They really, I mean, a lot of the founding people
drill it into these
from
kids.
perio. Whereas in my school, I feel like I didn't learn half of the things that I feel like the dental students here are learning. And,
they're very advanced, truly. Like even teaching the pre-doc, we're like, wow, this is good. But we also get to do a little bit in perio, which is nice. So we get our hands warm.
They have honors students. So, students who are interested in actually going into perio, they take about 5 or 10 each year. And so they get to do they might get to place implants, or they get to do like an osseous surgery as part of their undergraduate training. And so we'll be there chairside with them, talking them through it and teaching them what to do. So yeah, it's nice. It's a big variety. Recently, we were just on the interviews bringing in the new residents.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting being on the other side of the table. But yeah, it was good. It's a good variety. We're enjoying it so far.
Excellent. And do you get to actually treat patients like at the faculty, like your own like more complicated patients, or what you do is assisting your students? Are you allowed to practice on patients and get physical with them? Do you see what I mean? Like actually do the procedures on behalf of your students?
Yes, that's a great question. So you're able, they can't be your own patient. They can't be in your name. They're still under the student's name, but you can, help them with their sutures and do the incision, and you can still treat them very much. It's just that it has to be for teaching purposes. Licenses we're licensed in the state. It's just we're faculty licensed.
Yeah.
So it has to be for teaching purposes.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to establish. Okay, fine. That's making sense. So a quick recap so far is that the specialty route and the advanced standing program makes a lot of sense if you are very hellbound that you have to be in this specific state, and therefore for family reasons you probably want to do that one, whereas the specialty one just makes a lot of sense, but then you're limited to those 10 states or so. We've talked about fees, we've talked about how competitive it could be. We talk a little bit about loans and stuff. What else? What are the other questions that you get very commonly when you say that your doc's in US?
It is about the application process. So a lot of it is, and I know you've kind of gone into this before with others, but we get a lot of questions about the IMBDE exam. How difficult is that? We get a lot of questions on how do you actually...
Let's just talk about that. Give us a 5-10 minute overview of what are the need to know things about the application procedure. Because when episode number 2 of the podcast was with Christina, and we talked about coming to the US and stuff, but that was a good while ago. That was 5-6 years ago. Things probably have changed. Walk us through. You mentioned already about the ESE. Did I get that right? ESE? About the whole... ECE, about the whole converting your transcripts and getting your grade point average. That makes a lot of sense. What other features, and tell us about timescales, because we've talked about, the how to convert that, but to what a surety, and how can you actually plan your life when you're applying, and what certainty and what percentage chance have you got, and these kind of important details. If someone's in the thick of it right now and maybe they got a spouse in the US and they're thinking of practicing and they're like, I don't know how long this will take, give us some guidelines.
Well, start early. So
The time to start is now.
yeah,
Right?
if you
In fall.
yeah, if you're wanting to, I would say start have an idea of when you want to be in the US and then work backwards. So typically most of the applications for specialty training open in around May and then close in August. So you need to have all of your documents and all of your application stuff way before that. So yeah, like Dorian said, I would start in late summer, early fall and
9 months
starting
to a
get
year.
that ready. Because a lot of the times you need to get letters of recommendations from your dean, from your school, and you may have graduated. We both graduated from there, and those deans weren't the same deans that were there anymore. But
I said retired.
You have to time to get those documents from the schools that you need. The ECE is one of them. We spoke about that, getting those transcripts sent over.
The IMBDE exam, so there's 2 exams you need to do. There's the TOEFL, which is an English language exam, and it's just get that one done. It should be very easy for someone.
Is it online, or do you have to come to the States to do it?
It's more a money-making thing. It's a couple $100. So that one's easy. But the IMBD exam, it's a bit more time-consuming. We both studied for about 2 months. And so
Again, while you're in the UK?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you are. We were working full-time.
Hazel was working in the UK when she did hers. Full-time working.
Yes, yes.
And she studied for about 2 months. I was like, I'm just going to apply this year and not have it in. And it really reduces your chances. So don't do that, because I did my IMBD in my residency. It's a bad idea. Don't do that. Don't be like me. Do your IMBD early in the UK.
Get it done.
It takes about 4 hours a day for 2 months. That's what I would recommend. And we used a service called Bootcamp. It's what all the dental students here use at Penn. And I think we have 100% pass rate. So I just went on the Reddit forums and I found the most popular one. There's lots of different ones out there. It's just, it gives you a very structured schedule of how to study for it. And then it gives you very high yield topics. So how the students here study, which is very different, is that they memorize past questions. And that's really what those services are like. It's just past questions.
There's a lot of
constant repetition. And so I think that exam
So this is the same exam that the final year dental students sit. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but you have to do that ideally before you come to the US, you need to sit it. And again, it's online again?
No, you have to come to the US to do it.
Yes.
And it's at the driving test center, but they only administered in the United States.
So you have to come.
So you have to come, and it's a pass-fail exam. It used to be 2 parts. So maybe in your previous, I can't remember exactly, but I think in the previous one, it was IMBD part 1 and 2. Now it's 1 part in 2 days. It's meant to be easier. And I definitely think it's doable, but it's all of dentistry, from basic science to pharmacology to clinical. So you really need some sort of structure in order to be able to study for it, or else, you might be wasting your time when you're studying.
It's definitely doable. I would say it's similar to the final years of dental school. So if anyone is in dental school and they're thinking of taking it in and around the same time, I would say your knowledge is very fresh at that time. But I was 3 years out of dental school when I took it, and it was fine. Like, just the terminology is a little bit different. Like, your paracetamol becomes acetaminophen. Policies are a little bit different. How they treat pregnant women are a little bit different. So it's more of those sides of things, but dentistry generally is very similar.
Same.
So I wouldn't let people, I think that's kind of a big barrier to people get really scared about this exam, and it really is doable. So I wouldn't have people let that put them off.
And you don't need to carve out, 2 months of your time. We did it with our lives still going on.
Is this something that you could do? Let's say you have a dream in the back of your mind that you may want to go to America. So let's say you're a fresh grad, everything's really fresh in your head. Could you just go to America? Let's say you're going to go to Disney World anyway. You're going to Florida, you're going to Disney World. Hey, how about I just go to Florida, I go to a driving license place, do my exam for 2 days, just to get this tick, so that if a few years later I decide to come to America, is this sounding like a good idea, or have I just made this up?
Yeah, you could do it. If you have $1,000 to gamble,
Okay, scratch that. No one's got $1,000 straight after dental school.
We also book out quite far in advance. So long as you're planning it at the same time as you're booking your holiday, then be my guest, go for it. But yeah, it doesn't, to my knowledge, it doesn't expire.
You can take it as many times as you want. The exam doesn't, as long as you're willing to pay for it, they don't care. And they will just look at the passing score. And it's not even scored. They'll just look at the pass.
Yeah.
So I think if you're fresh out of dental school and you have the US in the back of your mind, why not? It's probably the best time to do it. Otherwise, I would say if you're coming to check out schools and you're coming to do some sort of internship, which they offer here, you can come and just shadow for a couple days. A lot of people do that. Then it's a great time to tie that in. Come see the schools, do your exam.
That's what I did. I had to sit mine in Long Island because it was kind of coming out of COVID. There was restricted areas. So I flew into New York. And at the same time, I was like, let me just go and see the school. Let me go down to Philadelphia and actually extern, which goes such a long way when it comes to interviews. They love people that come to extern because they've seen them, they've met them. It shows commitment. It shows, are you interested? And then also on the other side, they ask, like when we were residents, they would ask us, what did you think of this extern? What did you remember when they externed? What did you like about them? And so they really value people actually coming and visiting the school. So it kind of, saves an extra
especially from
cost.
abroad, because one of the aspects, and we can get into this after, but one of the aspects that we look at in the interview process is the students' willingness to come to the school. They want to accept people who want to come here and will accept the offer as well. So by you traveling and coming here and shadowing, it shows a lot of interest. And so that, like, you score pretty high for that category.
It's the same one, because when I was in the interview panel for just Sheffield Dental School, like if they didn't come to the open day, like that was a surefire way to know that, okay, we're not giving this person the offer.
Yeah.
So it's like, the flip is, it's true that you showed commitment, Hazel, by doing that. Did you do that as well, Doreen? Did you visit as an external?
Sometimes I'm like, how did I get into this program? Because but like I said, it will definitely increase your chances.
And you also said that you did the exam during your residency. So I don't get it. Isn't that a prerequisite to get in or not?
Not depend.
For most schools, yes.
For most schools, that's why I said you will shoot yourself in the foot if you don't do it. I only applied to 3 schools, so I was like, okay, it'll be fine. I was honestly, I kind of did what you did, what you were going to do in Disneyland. I was like, let me just apply, and then whatever I don't have next year, I'll make it better. And I actually got in, so it just goes to show you should try it. You don't have to.
So why did you do the exam then? What was the need to? If you got in, is the exam a requirement for you to get into your program, or a requirement for you to be able to actually practice in the States? I'm just trying to just figure that one out now.
It's the practice.
To practice.
I initially was toying with the idea of coming back to the UK as a specialist. And I had a job I loved in the UK, and they were like, go do your specialty program, and you have your job here if you want. So for the first year and a half, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay here or not. I think Hazel pretty much knew from the get-go, but for me, I was definitely apprehensive. And I think it just goes to show like how much things can change in a few years.
You have to be open to the unexpected, I think. But
that reminds me of medical students. When you do dentistry first, like in the UK, when you do dentistry first, then you do medicine because you want to do max fax, and then you end up being a GP, or you end up going to ophthalmology or something like. You just never know where it's going to go, right?
Never know.
Exactly.
Now, here's an interesting question you reminded me of, Doreen, actually, is you mentioned that, you could have gone back to the UK. If some UK dentists are like, general dentists, and they're looking at some of these specialty programs in the UK for pros or perio, can you go to a specialty program in the US and then just come back to the UK or be automatically like in the GDC register as a specialist? Like if you were to go back now as in the UK, would you be like, okay, you can just apply for the GDC to be a specialist, register for a periodontist, and that's it, done?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to do. It's not automatic, so I think you need some sort of portfolio.
Yeah.
We stress a lot here is, we take photos of every patient that comes in. So we have a pretty big portfolio to begin with, along with like all our numbers, everything's on the computer. So That's really what you need to be able to register with the GDC. Even if there's a lot of hoops to jump through with that and you don't want to be GDC recognized, you can still advertise you're American board certified. So you can say you're a board certified periodontist in America. I mean, it holds its name for patients, as far as patients goes.
And you actually gain those skills and the confidence to be able to do those procedures that are specialist in scope, right?
Exactly. And I think our main comparison, because I looked at the specialty route for perio in the UK as well. And I mean, the main differences here is that the patients pay for their treatment in the United States. So when they come to the dental school and they see dental students, they pay for everything that they're getting. It's subsidized, but it prevents this barrier from you being able to do whatever treatment you want to do. You can place implants wherever you want. You can do cosmetic treatment and so on and so forth. So the amount of surgery that we get to do here is significantly higher than in the UK. And I think that's one of the merits of the program. So it's still worth doing. I mean, if you want a specialty program here and you still want to go back, it's still worth doing, even if you don't want to stay in the US.
I think it's worth to mention that I don't want to like poo-poo any UK universities or anything like that. That's not the point of this. But, you know, when I was at DCT, I saw the specialty trainees there in perio, in pros, whatever. And I just knew that the amount of surgery they're doing is way less than you do in the US in their program. So that's something worth considering for those in the UK who are wanting to specialize in pros or ortho or whatever, to consider doing it in the States. And we've explored that route today.
Yeah, and that's absolutely it. Like we have so many friends in the UK who are periodontists, and they're excellent, absolutely excellent. But the treatment philosophies are different. They're a lot more surgical here, even gung-ho, if you will. And so they are much more willing to cut rather than go through the non-surgical route, which we initially start with in the UK. And it's not to say one is better or worse, but it's just that you get more hands-on experience.
You're not going to get good at surgery without doing lots of surgery. I think you're going to, you know, in your trainee programs, you got to do more surgery. So whilst you may still be able to do the conservative, minimally invasive way, you have much more surgical totals under your belt when you qualify than potentially most people, most specialty trainees in the UK. And that's saying something. I think people around the world should consider that as well, about which institution they do their training with, because you'll get a different number of surgical experience for perio, for example.
Right. Yeah. And so for even endo, we were talking about it earlier, we wanted to be inclusive. Like our endo department is sponsored by Zeiss. Every single unit has a Zeiss microscope. I mean, even the students get to use the microscope. So,
and they're all doing their own apicos. They're all doing, even the endos are doing surgery. So yeah, like there's just,
their hands aren't necessarily tied. The funding is there. I mean, the tuition's expensive. The patients are paying. So there's money here, and
materials as well. Like, so I think there's certain materials that we can use here in the States that are not necessarily available in Europe for whatever reasons. But yeah, that's like a little bit different. Yeah, just surgeries I hadn't even heard of. I'd never even come across it in my undergraduate training or even in the UK. So when we came, I thought it was a lot of it was going to be implants. And don't get me wrong, we placed hundreds of implants during our training, but a lot of soft tissue surgery as well, which I have grown to love and didn't even realize was even an option. So yeah, it's been
great. And it's going back to the process again. We talked about the whole converting your transcript. You talked about the exam that now is over 2 days. The whole Disney World thing I said, and then you eventually apply to. So do you have to have those under your belt before you apply to the institution, or what happens from there? Did we complete the whole procedure?
The exam can be in progress. Ideally, it should be finished by the time you click submit on your application, which is usually in the summertime.
Yeah, there's like an online portal which is similar to, I guess, UCAS, where you go in. It's called ADIA Capid or ADIA Pass, depending on whether you're doing the 2-year or the specialty training. And that's going to oversee all the schools that you apply to. So each school will get a copy of your personal statement, your CV, you upload all of your experiences, all your exams, your TOEFL, everything goes into this portal. And then on top of that you may be required to send a supplemental fee to a supplemental application to each school saying why that school specifically, and each school that you apply for, you have to pay for. So it's in and around $200 for each school. So
Is there a limit?
No limit. No limit. You can
That's
apply.
really cool, because I remember like there was like 4 dental schools you can apply to, right, in the UK. So actually, if you want to convert your degree, and you can potentially, obviously it's going to cost a lot more, but like you can choose 30 dental schools maybe to do your advanced training program, right? I probably said it wrong there. How do you say it again?
Advanced standing.
That's it, advanced standing, right? So you can apply to loads, and then the same goes for the specialty applications. Can you do as many as you want? Can you do both at the same time? Can you apply for the advanced standing and some specialty programs? And can you mix and match? Like, for example, is it one personal statement that you submit that goes to all of these, or is it an individual one? Because you can't talk about, oh, I love perio in your personal statement equivalent, but then the general dentist and the prosthodontic department are seeing it. So just tell me about that.
Yeah, don't do that. It's one personal statement for application. If they see that, you'll be vetoed from every.
It's a waste of money, waste of an application.
Don't do it, because that's something that we get asked about. People are asked saying, "Oh, I'm interested in Max Fax and Perio and this." Decide what you want to do, then do it. Don't. It just shows you're not committed to that particular specialty.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a big no. And then in addition, there's 2 more narratives. So aside from the supplemental, which is specific to the school, you have a general personal statement that you keep, it's not school specific, it's more specialty specific, why you want to do that specialty. And then also your CV, which I think is truly where the UK applicants shine. And, there's more work experience, and I think the clinical training in the UK is incredible. So I definitely don't think there are any deficiencies there from the dental
Despite what we may think, despite what we as UK grads, we think that, right? But when I was in Singapore and I met some US docs, I was like, wait a minute, you're from the US, you should have done 500 crowns by the time you qualified. They're like, no, I did about 5. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, their clinical numbers are less, and they don't have dental assistants helping, like, they don't have a nurse or a buddy. So they're doing crown preps just by themselves. And so it's not very...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think to the point about the CV, so most places here that you go straight from dental school into residency. So you don't have that experience to figure out what you like, what you don't like. It's very, very like, I guess because it's very referral heavy based here in the US, that a lot of people to go into specialties compared to the UK, I think. And so actually I think that you don't have as much experience. You don't have all this audit experience, poster experiences, like all this stuff. And just been able to be, convincing in your reasoning for wanting to do it, not just because my dad is one, or I did some SRPs during my dental school. And that's why, I feel like you come with a little bit more.
We're just 2 people, and our opinion changed out of dental school compared to when we went to practice. It just goes to show when you work, you realize so much more.
You experienced the university of life, basically. You had some of that behind you, right? And then before you're able to, it made your application stronger, basically.
Absolutely. And one thing we talked about discussing before is please do your DFT year. It's a great, great learning year if you're applying. We would highly recommend doing that year before you apply. And what a great time to apply for this residency or advanced standing during that year when, your clinical workload is a little bit lower, because it is such a good year of training, and don't cheat yourself of the experience.
Yeah, I think so. Especially as well, if you want to come back and work in the NHS or whatever your reason, I just think do that year. I think for me, had I known, I did the DCT 1, 2, and 3, if you will. Had I known about this prior, I wouldn't change my route. But if somebody is in that route of I know in the UK, when you're trying to apply for specialty training, you might be applying 2, 3, 4 years in a row before you actually get a spot. And so if this is something that you're interested in doing, you don't have to wait that long. You don't have to have a minimum of 2 years experience. You can do it from the get-go if it's something you're interested in. So, I wouldn't change my route, but for people who are kind of thinking about it but didn't know this was an option, then I think, it's the information is there. If you want to go for it, do it.
Yeah.
Hazel, do you visit the UK, see family?
Yes, I do. I've got my family are still in Scotland, and I was just there in Manchester.
Do you change your accent back to Scottish when you're there?
Here, when I was in Manchester, people said I sounded Mancunian. And then I went to London. So,
Chameleon.
And Doreen, you do you have a family in Canada, right?
Yeah, my family's in Canada, but I go back to the UK as well just to see my friends.
Okay, nice. Well, are you happy both through that? We've covered the pathway, how much does it cost, what exams you need to do, all those key questions. Is there any stone left unturned?
I think the I think the one thing that maybe might be worth mentioning is just about the reason why people want to do practice as a dentist in the US, aside from family reasons, just the work, what it's like working here. I think the big draw is the increased earning potential, but also you don't have to see as many patients here, I feel like, especially with specialty. Like we were discussing, it's people see about 7 to 10 patients. So you're not really like running around seeing a ton of people
because you don't have to.
because you don't have to.
But that's from a specialist view set, right? That's from a specialist view set.
More so, yes.
Yes,
More
yeah.
so from the specialist view set.
Because something that I perceive, and it's great we're talking about this, right? So I have this like perception that yes, we have the public system in the UK, the NHS, and we talk about it a lot, and you know the hamster wheel effect and burnout, but a lot of dentists, they make it work, and they like doing that system, they work fine in it, and we need that service, and I get it. But equally, I feel as though from being involved in the US forums and stuff, the whole insurance, you know, are you FFS, are you fee for service, or are you insurance, and Delta this and this company that, and how they're reducing their rates, or this patients that keep saying that I only want to do treatment that's included in my insurance and that kind of stuff. A similar problem, a cultural problem, or a problem of how dentists get remunerated, it also exists in the US as well, right? It's fair to say. And therefore, I think it's important to maybe shadow, just like we say shadow in the UK, shadow maybe a general dentist, if that's what we want to be, like shadow some general dentists, even in like maybe high needs areas in the US, just see, okay, what's the run-of-the-mill dental surgery like? Because I was in New Mexico a few months ago, right? And I saw an absolute master, TMD master at work, but I was exhausted. He was hopping from surgery to surgery to surgery, hygiene checks, and also checking the orthotics stuff. I was like, bloody hell. I saw one patient at a time. I felt, I took that for granted. Micromanaged like 10 in an hour. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, they have different rooms here, which is funny. But I think that one thing that's very different, and maybe you've picked this up when you were shadowing, but the patient perception here is totally different, in my opinion. Where we've had patients, we're in a very high needs area in Philadelphia, and we've had patients say, like, I will sell my car, I will get a second mortgage on my house, like, I need to fix my teeth. Whereas I think, and like, not to paint everyone with a broad brush, but I do think that the appreciation of dental
It's a
care,
value. It's how much you value your dental health, I think.
and insurance, I mean, that kind of stuff is just as challenging, if not much more challenging, as the challenges you face with the NHS. But I think as far as the patient perception goes, and as far as the referral culture goes, it's a little bit more in favor of the dentist here, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. And even even through a residency, like working in hospital before I came here, I never had to discuss any costs with patients. Apart from when I worked in my DFT year, where it was, you know, everything was under the NHS, I never had to talk about any funding with them. And here we're quoting like $40,000-$50,000 treatment plans
As students.
as residents. And I'm thinking, gosh, this patient's never going to take this. And they do. They're like, okay, fine. Like, let's figure out a financial plan.
Put me on a plan.
Let me do it. And so that was a big learning experience for me to be like, wow, like I really not.
And as young dentists, that's really good to have, because quite often, like I would say, the vast majority of dentists, even 10 years qualified, have a money problem whereby they diagnose the wallet and then they undersell themselves, or they struggle with communicating fees. But when you're getting that level of exposure with those numbers, you get more confidence, because I think we can sometimes really undervalue what we do. What we do as a service in dentistry is so bespoke, right? One of my old principals says that he went to this like exhibition and there was a cabinet there for £50,000, right? And he says, why are we underselling our dentistry when you can buy a cabinet £50,000, right? Just one thing that stuck to my mind always. I always think about cabinet, right? It's like we undersell ourselves. So I think it's good to have that exposure.
It's so true. And especially because you did do a bit of private work, but I was like, I cannot be like, I had no idea how to talk to patients about money. It's not something you learn in dental school. And so, yeah, it was such a good experience for me. And I'm so much more confident now just to be like, this is the price of it. This is, you know, our time is valuable. And if this
We
is
have
what
debt,
you want.
what have you.
But yeah, I also think the patients it's just in the culture that's how
it's just valued. People are able to find the funds for it. You know, people always pay for what they value, and I think I definitely saw that as well. That people value dental health for sure, and that's an interesting cultural difference that I think It's fair to say, from my observations, and definitely your even more valuable observations. My only thing that I'm a little bit confused on after all this conversation is we've said Philadelphia so many times. Don't you call it Philly, or is it Philadelphia? You don't say Philly? I'm disappointed.
No.
Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah. You didn't say, "Oh, we're here in Philly." Like you don't say that. It's not a thing.
Cool enough. I think we're not cool.
No, I think what it is people who are not from Philly say UPenn and they say Philly because people only say Penn here, and I feel like people say Philadelphia. There you go.
There we are. We got to the end of it. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to learn about your journeys. I wish you all the best in the rest of your training and the wonderful careers and lives ahead of you, wherever you end up. And I would love to keep in touch. I would love to know in 10 years' time, which state, which city, like what are you doing? That'd be so fascinating, right? It's like a mystery because I don't know where, like, if you feel this way, but maybe I remember when I was I was even like a third year then student, a fifth year then student, and I could not see beyond fifth year. Like, could not see what life would be like. Do you have that thing now where you're just like laser focus on, we got to get our head down 2.5 years. We're in this program. You're deep inside. You're enjoying, the day by day challenges and stuff, but it's sometimes maybe difficult to visualize real life outside of those 3 years.
Yep.
No, I know. I
agree.
think over the next couple of years, we're going to be, this is our time to explore where we want to be. Go and travel, go and network, see who's out there, see where we want to end up. So,
our lives have changed so much in the past few years that, like,
who knows?
I'm not even predicting it anymore. I might be on.
We're going with it.
Go with the flow. Enjoy it. There's a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, right? And in this chapter, this guy, really a clever guy called Naval Ravikant, entrepreneur guy, he says that we don't give enough emphasis, we don't spend enough time to think about this topic of where would I like to spend the rest of my life. Like, it's something that other factors dictate this usually, right? And like 80% of us, we often return back to the neighborhood we grew up in life. Like, we go all over and then we end up returning back to the neighborhood we grew up in. But we don't spend enough time to really, be the masters of our own ship and actually just decide, okay, where do I want to spend the rest of my life? So I'm actually generally fascinated. Let's see where you ladies end up. Have you got anywhere in mind? Maybe it's like the whole time machine thing where you 10 years back, you watch this episode again and think, oh, I can't believe I said New York and I ended up in, I don't know, somewhere else, like Louisiana.
Who knows? I think we like the Northeast.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get back to the UK. It feels more European in their ways, cities.
And
here.
you're close to a lot.
Yeah. So I think we like the Northeast, which is where we can't work at the minute. Yeah, we'll see, but who knows? We might end up in Texas or something. Yeah. You know what's funny about this school?
Yeah, go on.
You won't remember this, but years and years ago, before I even was in dental school, I was in the practice that you worked in. My good friend Laura Bailey is a hygienist.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to you and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't, I really want to get into dental school. And so it's so funny now that we're come full circle, and it's like.
So you were at Richmond. You were at Richmond.
Yeah, I was there. I was just in seeing Laura. She was working there. We were like, just come with me for the day. And I was hanging out, and you were working there at the time. And so we were chatting.
I've returned back there now after being a few years away. I've gone back to Richmond now. So there we are. I'm working with Laura tomorrow. So I'll send her your love.
Say hi.
Okay. Wow. What a small world, man. Amazing. I'll be sure to say hi. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. This episode is not eligible for CE, but about 98% of our episodes are eligible for CE. We are a PACE-approved education provider. I want to thank our guests, Hazel and Doreen, once again. They did such a fantastic job. You just tell how helpful they are. And so I would love for you guys to reach out to them on Instagram and thank them for their time and effort and all the good vibes they're putting out there, because all this information is actually quite difficult to find, and they summarized it really well in our episode today. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I promise you've got lots of good clinical episodes as well. And if you're watching in Protrusive Guidance, our community of the nicest and geekiest dentists in the world, please do comment. We love to read all your comments. And Protruserati, the one who's watching, listening to this, wherever you end up in your journey, enjoy it. I'm getting a little bit philosophical here, but remember, there's more to life than teeth. But where in the world you choose to scrape teeth, that's up to you. And so wherever you end up in this world, I wish you all the success. And thanks again for listening all the way to the end. I want to thank Team Protrusive for doing a hard work to make these episodes possible. And so goodbye, my friends. I'll catch you same time, same place next week.